Hey, sports card fans, welcome back to another episode of Two Guys, One Hobby with Don and John. How are you, Don?
I'm doing well, John. How are you doing today?
Not too bad, not too bad. I was hoping to see at this point Rick Vintage Oddball Cards contest video. I know he did something about show us your beater cards, and the only reason why I bring this up is one of his prizes, I believe, was a Don Mossy. And if you recall our very first episode, we were talking about contract negotiations, how this was all
Correct.
going to work out. And of course, you dropped a bomb on me and said that you hired this high-powered attorney from Dewey, Cheatham and Howe called Scott Reindeer Studios.
Right.
So I knew I was in trouble. And he demands a payment in the form of a Don Mossy card. And one of the prizes in Rick's contest is a Don Mossy card. So I'm crossing my fingers whenever he does that contest drawing that I hope I win, because that way I can pay Scott off and hopefully we can have some pleasant negotiations.
Yeah, there's a problem with that, John.
Yeah.
Since that video, I've since fired Scott Reindeer Studios.
Oh.
He's no longer my agent. What do they say when you're getting divorced? I've never been divorced, but a difference in
in irreconcilable differences.
There you go. I had to let him go. He just wasn't getting the job done. So you're off the hook for a little while because I'm looking for a new attorney. But or agent. I mean, so yeah.
Well, we're still doing these. We're still having fun. Speaking of this next episode here, this was your turn to bring on a guest.
Yes.
So if you want to do the quick intro, and we'll get him on here.
Absolutely. So I met this particular YouTuber in Chicago in 21, I guess, at the National. And he was not at the National last year, but we've talked quite a few times, and just a great guy. And not this past weekend. This is Monday night. But by the time this comes out, it'll probably be 2 weekends past. Spent the whole day with him in Strongsville, Ohio at the card shop, and had a bunch of laughs, and just a really good dude. And I like to pick people that I don't see on a lot of live streams. And so I went with a foreign pick on this one. So
yes, we are going north of the border, and let's just bring him on here. We have Mike, Canadian Cards.
What's
Mike,
up?
how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
I'm doing great.
Very good. Very good.
Very
Yeah,
good.
I remember, Mike, meeting you for the first time at the National in Chicago. I think maybe it was that 2021. You had, I think you made it down, but I think you were a little incapacitated with your hip or leg or something like that.
Still I'm incapacitated.
He looked good then compared to
it's the running joke in Canada. We have free healthcare, but there's no hurry for anything up here.
So great to have you on, Mike. As usual, we have our guest pick a topic or something that they're interested in, that want to talk about. Now, Mike, in watching your videos, and by the way, if you haven't been watching Canadian Cards or his channel, we will have a link to Mike's channel in the description of this video. Definitely go check his channel out. But in addition to maybe individual players, you collect a lot of sets and in multiple sports, not just baseball, but hockey and football, boxing, other non-sport. But today you thought that we could talk about your 59 Bowman set that you are working on.
Our show's so great because John just mentioned 59 Bowman. It's a shame they entered the company in 55, but that's okay.
49 Bowman.
What are you talking about?
49 Bowman. Yes.
And
yes.
We wanted you to talk about that.
I'm always good for a good laugh. I throw these little Easter eggs out there. Now, Don, you were very quick to pick that out. You should have just let it go a little bit.
Oh, it was so bad. I had to jump on it.
You should have just thrown it back at me.
There's already like 10 bloopers for the B-roll at the end of this, right?
So one of the reasons that I thought it'd be cool to have Mike talk about the 49 Bowman is because Mike Moynihan, the Golden Age of Cardboard, talked about Bowman, and he had this guy on called Dave Blue Jays 66 talking about 49 Bowman. So he
Mhm.
kind of dissed our buddy Mike here. So I thought we'd bring
Yeah.
Mike on to talk about this awesome set.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Dave and his set, and before the golden age of cardboard, I'm pretty sure Dave did his own video on the set because Dave has a master set, and I don't want to say it inspired me because I just want to preface this. There's no way in the world I thought I'd be actually going after this set because it's a big undertaking. I'm in no hurry to get it done. It's definitely when they talk about marathon versus a sprint, this is gonna
Right.
be a marathon. Um, just because it's costly to pick up cards, but in watching Dave's video in his presentation of it, it was I really just I was in awe at the set, the colors, the pastel colors, and it was just something different that you don't see every day. Obviously, the dimensions of the card are smaller, and it's loaded with rookie cards in there. So it kind of, I don't want to say that started it, but it definitely had an effect watching his video. I mean, that's how I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times there's certain things that I want to collect, but I get inspired by watching other people's YouTube channels. Like
Yeah.
I don't per se come up with these ideas on my own. I'll see a YouTube video and I'll be like, oh, I gotta have one of those,
Right. Yeah,
and it
I'm
just
glad.
inspires you.
I find cards that I didn't know about, or a lot of these live streams, like Alex Bowman 53 just gets on eBay and people throw out cards, and you're
Yeah,
right. Like, oh, I want one of those.
yeah,
Even on the radar before.
yeah. It's
Now, Don,
and
you've been collecting vintage, Don, for how many years now?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I originally started in 76, but they weren't vintage. They were brand new. I was buying
Right.
in 1936. But so off and on since then, but really only since really back into it since around 19.
2019. Okay. And Mike, for you, in terms of vintage, regardless of the sport, how long have you been collecting
well,
vintage?
I mean, I recently showed off a set that I picked up in Strongsville. It's the 1970-71 Dad's Cookie set, and it's
Mhm.
hockey. It's put out by the NHLPA, so nobody's in their team uniforms. They're in NHLPA jerseys. That was probably the first set I remember trying to put together, and it's 144 cards, and I actually picked up that set in Strongsville, and I was fortunate enough to get a good deal. But that was when I was 5 in 1970,
Mhm.
and then I collected all the way until I want to say the mid 80s. I started doing shows when I was around 20, and then by 1993, I got out of the hobby. I was a little put off by it. I was put off by all the wax that was coming out because back then, grading cards wasn't a big deal. Like, it was very rare to see it, and if you were a dealer, you had to have wax. That's how you made money. Everyone had it, but it just became so cutthroat. I just got soured by it, and I packed everything away, put it in my back room, and it sat there. I moved it twice, um, and finally, I think in early 2018, my wife was in the back room and she said, "What is all this shit back here?" And I said, "That's all my card collection." She's like, "Well, clean it up, like reorganize. There's got to be more room here to get around." And I remember pulling everything out and just start looking at it. And I think my wife came home later that day and it was just everything was all over. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm back, baby." I got the juices flowing again. So yeah, about 2018. And
Yeah.
you know, I set up at shows, and so I do have some modern stuff, but I mean, for me, vintage is what I enjoy.
Yeah.
That's what I
The,
really enjoy.
the reason why I brought that up is for me in terms of vintage, it for the most part, it's just been the last 3 years. So I feel like for a lot of vintage collectors, I'm a little bit behind the curve in terms of there's still so much out there that I don't have. Now, Don, again, maybe you're a little bit longer on, and you, Mike, as well. I think it's easy for me to see a card and go, "Oh wow, that's one I want to pick up," that you see on someone else's video. But even the two of you find cards
Oh, there's
that
so
with the collection that you have, you say, "Wow, I didn't like." Don, you said, I haven't seen that card before. It wasn't. I forgot about that card." So what I'm finding is I need to put. I have a major list of like all these Hall of Famers, vintage Hall of Fame cards. So I have a big spreadsheet, but there's just so many that I don't have. It's like, okay, well, what do I go after? And I think I'm going to actually start as I see YouTube videos, watch all these YouTubers show off these vintage cards and go, oh, wow, that's a cool card or whatever. If it's a reasonable price card, one that I think I can afford, I think I'm going to start a separate list. And, if it's not on that list, would I like to own it one day? Yeah. But maybe some of those newer ones that are fresh in my mind, I want to say, okay, let me target these 20 or 30 or whatever, rather than try to go after the 900 that I don't have.
Well, it's endless. I think there's always something you could find to go after, and
about.
and you can branch out into stuff like, it doesn't necessarily have to be cards. I mean, you look at Rick Vintage Oddball, he's got type 1, 2, 3 photos, postcards. There's so much about the hobby, and there's so many arms on that tree that it's easy to um I I think it's easy to lose focus.
Oh,
I'm terrible for focus. I
yeah.
The first national I went to was 2019, and I printed off a floor map, and I said, okay, I'm going to walk in, I'm going up this aisle and coming back down, and then up that. And I was like, huh, what's this over here? And pretty soon I was going diagonally across the floor, and I couldn't really get my bearings as to where I was going. So I just kind of, freewheeled it, and made my way. But it's trying to stay focused. So, and part of the sets that I collect, that helps me focus.
Hmm.
Like I'll pick a set and I'll work on it, and it becomes a project. And the 49 Bowman, like I said, I know it's going to be 240 cards, but it's going to be 4 or 5 years, because a lot of the high numbers are expensive. There were 7 series in total, and you can get into different variations, and
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Okay.
Dave's is incredible because he has the variants, and I just want to get one variation of all 240, and I'll be happy with that. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's pretty much my gig with
Yeah.
the sets. It helps me focus.
Yeah. My 100 cards for $100,000 sort of mini list, that's
Hmm.
kept me in somewhat focus.
Hmm.
But those are ones where I have to save up a little bit to
Yeah,
to go after, and then some of them are just really, really unattainable, or at least won't be for the foreseeable future.
right.
But beyond that, I still like to pick up stuff, and that's where I start losing my focus. I look at cards here, and I was on a live stream last night for player collectors,
Yeah, I see
and
it.
there were some Aarons and Mazes and Clementes, and
Mental.
I'm like, oh, well, that's okay. Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then before that, I was looking at some other play. Oh, geez, maybe I should get some Pete Rose cards, right?
yeah,
And I'm just like, okay, wait a minute, I can't.
yeah,
Tough too when you go to a show like I said. I was just with Mike last week at one, and I had a list of a couple players I wanted, and either they were way out of my price, or I didn't like the condition of them. And even Chris was like, "Man, you're picky." I'm like, "Yeah,
yeah.
I'm so close to finishing this." And I have most of the Stan Musial base run cards. There's a few out there that are very expensive and rare. And I was walking around with Scott Reindeer Studios, and he had these couple photos that were really cool. And I was like, "Hey, where did you get those?" And he went over to this booth and showed me. And I said, and the guy had more like photographs, like you were saying with Rick, and ticket stubs. And I said, "Do you have any Musial stuff?" And he's like, "Well, what are you looking for?" I'm like, "Nothing in particular. What do you have?" And I ended up getting this awesome Type 1 photo of Musial spring training. You can see the palm trees in the back here. This was not on my list. This is literally some guy's photograph,
Yeah.
I took it. But it was like,
awesome.
That's not something that I had on my list. And this guy, he didn't really even know what he had. He picked up a POW. He was like, "Let me see what I got."
Right.
Now, so, even though I'm kind of focused and this fits into my Musial collection, which is sort of focused, it wasn't on my radar. It was a cool piece. And like you said, it's not always cards. You just find other stuff.
100%. I mean, look at behind John. If he was just collecting Wade Boggs cards, like everything behind him is dedicated to Boggs. So there's a plethora of stuff that you could go with. For me, I'm a Yaz is my PC. Yaz is my vintage guy. He's my all-time Red Sox guy, and Devers is he's my current guy. I've dabbled a little bit in Blaze Jordan, prospect for the Red Sox. Who knows what'll happen with him? But I'm kind of torn. I finished my Red Sox or my Yastrzemski run, and then I thought, well, I've got a lot of the cards raw, and I know that Dick Gordon Sports out of Maryland has the exclusivity with Carl Yastrzemski for signing. So I thought, well, I'll start sending the cards off and get them signed. So I got my first 3 signed. And again, being from Canada, the price difference is huge because for every $100 I spend, it's like 100 and, if I spend 100 US, that costs me 135 Canadian. Ooh. So, it's about a third difference on top. So then I started looking at it and I thought, like, Yaz has got, 20 more cards to sign. I'm going to spend like $3,000 doing this. And I'm like, you know what? Abandon ship. I'm not going to do it. And then my focus was, well, I'll take all my Yaz and make sure at least it matches his jersey number. They're all PS8 or higher, or SGC 8 or higher. But then I think to myself, like, why can't I just be happy with what I've got and then, continue on with something else like this 49 Bowman? Because I did see an SGC 8 Yastrzemski rookie card. And I thought at Strongsville, and I thought, well, if I get that, I was either going to get the Satchel Paige or the Jackie Robinson in Strongsville. That was my goal. And Friday I looked around and I knew if I grabbed the Yaz, I wasn't going to get both. I was getting one big card. And the story goes, and I think I told Dawn this on Saturday, but on Friday when I was looking around, I thought, Strongsville's just outside of Cleveland. How cool would it be to get the Satchel Paige? He played in Cleveland. It's just fitting. And so I thought, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I remember there's a few I wrote down that I'm going to go back and visit. I woke up Saturday morning and I flipped on ESPN and it was Jackie Robinson Day. And I'm like, oh, man. It's almost like, okay, switch gears. I'm going after the Jackie, right? So, but it, as long as you have fun with it. And I mean, everybody, I don't think anyone has perfect focus. We're all going to dive off other branches and get involved in other stuff. But
there's always going to be a squirrel.
Yeah, always. As long as you have a good time. And Eric, 4-leaf, he bought a silk on the Friday night. And it's ironic. It's a like early 1900s silk of a squirrel. Because he said, that's my focus. So I bought that. He bought a non-sport silk of a squirrel because he said, that's my focus. This is my little mascot here. So
Yeah.
it is only fitting because I could relate fully to it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So you say there's about 240 cards in the set?
Yeah, 240. I've got right now I've got 91 of them down.
Okay.
So I'm approaching the halfway point. I think I'm somewhere around 39%. But it's a grind because I need a lot of the high numbers. I was looking at Strongsville, the high numbers, everything's obviously dependent on condition and stuff, but I was looking at some high number ones and I'm like, listen, if I'm going to get the Jackie, I'm not going to have enough, so I'll get some of the lower series ones, and I'm not looking for it to be perfect. I mean, I want it. And for me, I think on a set like this, to complete the set in the condition that I can best afford and put together for the most economical way, to me, I'm fine with that. I don't want to say it's got to be, a minimum of 4 or 5 looking or graded, because that'll take 10 or 15 years, and I want to get onto other projects eventually. So
raw and graded, right?
yeah, I have mostly raw. I think graded ones I've got 2 lesser known guys, and that are graded PSA, and then I've got 3 stars that are graded, 1 SGC, 1 PSA, and then one from a company up here in Canada that I actually just got in today, company called KSA.
So how would you go about storing that set when it's all said and done? Are you going to put it in a binder? But then how do you deal with the graded cards? See, I'm not a set builder. I'm working on the 78 top set, but that's all going to be raw. I have other separate graded cards of Hall of Famers, but in addition, I'm going to get the raw card and maybe put it in a binder. But for you're not going to buy 2 Jackie Robinsons, have one raw, have one graded. So how are you going to display that?
I
store it?
I haven't really gotten that far. I think if it comes to the completion of it, I'll worry about that at that point. I think what I would do is, I have to, up here, I've searched high and low at different LCS for the for the binder sheets that hold the 49, and no one seems to have them. So it's probably something I should have picked up while I was in the States, but I'll put everything in there, and then I'll just put a handwritten note where card number 36 is. I'll say Pee Wee Reese in whatever grade it's in, and just kind of have it separately. There's just some, I mean, if I was Jake, Legends Never Die, I'd be cracking them all out, right?
Yeah.
Putting them right in the binder.
Yeah.
I'm not, that's not happening. I consider it, if I have something like
you on that card you just bought.
Yeah, something like this, I would consider it. It's PSA 4, Hank Sauer. I would consider that, but not with any, Satchel or Jackie. I want to keep those.
Now,
I think it adds to it.
Do you watch a Dylan Double D vintage baseball cards?
Yep, I do.
Well, he uses, and I'm trying to think what size or what they're for.
Graded sleeves.
It's they're binder pages, and I think they're 4 to a page, and they fit
thick.
Yeah. Well, but I'm saying that, but Mike, if you have like 6 or 8 graded cards, because
you can put them in those.
Probably put them all in one binder with the remainder 220 cards. At least have them together and say, all right, well, here are the graded, here are the nicer ones or whatever, and then here's the rest of the set.
100%.
I don't know. I think of the weirdest things when it comes to that stuff. Rather than focus on the cards, I'm like, okay, how do you store it? How do you display it? Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of the afterthought. I'm like, let's just get it done and see where it takes us, and then put it together after that. And another thing I thought about doing was I grade with JT his SGC submissions every once in a while, and I thought, well, that's a lot of grading. But I thought, if I do pick up some of the more known stars, maybe send those ones off.
Yeah.
If I pick up I don't know, if I pick up a Bob Feller or Bobby Dorr or someone like that raw,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
send those away and get those graded. But
Mhm.
I think with those ones, I think I want to be able to, at least in my mind, know that the higher priced ones are genuine because they're graded, and you don't
Yeah.
want to, there's lots of fakes out there for everything, and I'm sure there's fakes in the 49 Bowman. So the last thing I'd want is to have it done and then find out from someone, I hate to tell you this, but your satchel's fake. And it'd be like,
Yeah.
what?
Or trimmed or somehow just, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Trimmed if Mike's buying it. But,
Yeah, exactly. That's a running joke with Don. I don't know if people remember, but I think it was on the video, wasn't it, from the National? I was buying a Jim Brown rookie,
I don't want
and Don said, "Can I see it?" And I said, "Sure." And I showed it to him, and he looks at Brian. He goes, "Is this the trim one?" And I was like, "What?"
I didn't know Mike at this point.
Yeah,
I'm like, we probably got rid of that trim card, Brian.
Yeah.
we probably knew each other for about 15 minutes, and he's already throwing shade at me. I'm like, okay, this is good though. This is good banter. You fit right in when that kind of stuff happens. So.
We were in the truck going to lunch this past weekend or 2 weekends ago, and Mike said, is there a river around here? That there's kind of a smell. And I hesitate to ask this, and I was sitting in the back seat. He was in front because he's like, I know Don's gonna have a smart ass comment.
Yeah.
Like, of course I did, but I'm not gonna get it here because I have a good friend Nina, and I don't from Cleveland, but I had to come back.
Yeah. So as it stands right now, I just keep everything. They're all in the card savers right now, until I can find those pages, and I'll be at the National this year, so I'm sure someone will have them there, somewhere along the way. So if I have to order
speaking of the National, I heard that they are adding 200,000 square feet of space.
Wow. There's even more room.
I saw, I forget what, someone on YouTube, I forget what they said, but they're expanding it, and it's going to be, I think they've already sold more tickets or anticipate more tickets than Atlantic City.
Wow.
I guess it's going to be freaking huge.
I'm not surprised more people are going to Chicago than Atlantic City for numerous reasons: location, safety.
Mm-hmm. And I heard the experience at Atlantic City wasn't the greatest for both dealers and buyers, because the Wi-Fi was terrible. If you wanted
it
to
was.
check
Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
it was terrible.
That's terrible. That's terrible. That just makes for a bad experience overall. So I don't know.
I don't want to get off a tangent here because I want to get back to the 79 Bowman set. But in terms of
now we've gone up to 79.
Oh, you got that?
Did I say 79? I'm at 49. But oh, good Lord.
We keep adding 10, 20 years. The
10
next
20
one
years.
It'll be
All
the
right,
next one will be the 2019 Bowman.
What do you like about the 2029 Bowman set?
Yeah, exactly.
But with more space at the National, presumably being more dealers, more attendees, I'm wondering when there's going to be more stuff there, more opportunities to buy, more inventory. I wonder how the competition would be versus the whole supply demand, whether that's going to lead to better deals, because if there are more dealers, they're going to have to compete with each other for sales. I don't know.
Mhm.
It'll be interesting if it really expands that.
Do you think it's corporate companies taking that space up versus
It
car?
could be too.
I
It
don't
may
know.
not just be dealers. Yeah, it could be just, hey, let's widen the aisles and let's do this, and maybe not that many more dealers. That I don't know. I don't know if it may be some combination, or maybe it's just, hey, let's give everyone more room in between to walk around,
Mm.
and maybe that's it.
Right.
Well,
So
as far as I'm concerned, there's enough walking around to do in Chicago at the show as it is.
Yeah.
That's why I was a huge fan of the Strongsville show. Huge fan, because, and I think Don can attest to it. The show wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a bigger venue. Um, it was a good sized room. I think I counted 130 different dealers and 130 different tables. Sorry, that's what it was. The count on the map was tables. So there's 130 tables, but everything I saw no. Did you see any modern, Don?
Oh, one little end of a table where it was autographs that had a little
Right.
Out of the 130 tables, 129 were vintage.
Yeah, and it was just all compacted into this spot, and it was just great because if you were staying at the Best Western, I mean, the show went. I think Friday was we got the early access pass, so we checked in right at noon, right when the show was opening. So we just went upstairs, dropped their stuff, and went right back down. But it was good because you could leave the show and go up to your room, just relax and refocus, or just take a load off, or have a beer, or do whatever you need to do. But you didn't have to be there, where I feel at the Donald Stevens Convention Center, I mean, there's nowhere to go. I mean, you do have to go out, and I mean, I think our hotel's right across the street, but it's still a hike. You know, if you're at one end of the show,
Yep.
that's still a mile and a half to get to your hotel. You know, it's still a hike. So
To put it in perspective, John, and John's been to the Pittsburgh show.
I was just going to ask.
The size is very similar
Very similar.
to that show. Maybe a tiny bit smaller, but it's different in that it's all vintage. You know, the Pittsburgh show has some modern too, but it's comparable in size.
Well, speaking of that Pittsburgh show, because Don, I was going to ask if that was a similar size. My only 49 Bowman is one that I said 49 this time. I got it right.
You got it. You got it.
I picked it up at the Pittsburgh show last year, and Don was with me. Scott was there, and I saw at this one table. Again, just I didn't have any notion of focus of what I wanted. I was just looking around. Hey, if something catches my eye, great. And I saw a 64 tops Hank Aaron, which looked pretty nice. And at the same table, they had a 49 Bowman Warren Spawn.
Nice.
But it was partially covered. So they had a whole bunch of cards on, and they had them, like sort of stacked. And I could see one side of it, so I could see the grade and the price. And I'm like, oh, that's a nice, really nice looking card for the price and this and that. And then so I looked at it, and I'll show you here. It had an issue on it, but it doesn't really bother me, which hence the price. And we were hemming and hawing. I'm like, I don't know what to get. And Don's like, well, what's the one that, you sort of just keep thinking back to? And I said, yeah, I keep looking back at the Spawn. He goes, that's the one you need. I said, yeah, that's the one I can get a 64 tops.
Yeah, I remember. I didn't want to tell you which one I thought was better.
Yeah.
I asked, and I felt the same way with the card Mike bought, because the one he was originally looking at had a blemish by the B, and I didn't want to say anything because it wasn't my card or buying it, but I was thinking to myself, man, that would bother me, and it did for Mike, and Mike actually ended up getting another one from the same dealer, which is beautiful.
Yeah. So it was. I mean, it's one of those things. You bring it up, Don. I seen it there the whole time, but I was just I kept coming back to it. I was scanning the card all over, and then I'd come back to it because the B on his hat, on his Brooklyn Dodgers hat, there was a white fisheye right
Mm.
beside the B, and it looked like his hat said diagonally, it looked like it said Bo on it.
Oh,
And someone said, turn your light off from your phone and see if you notice it. But because I had already saw it so many times,
yep. You
as soon
couldn't
as
unsee it.
I couldn't unsee it. It was there. It was there. It was
I
there.
looked at it. I saw it. Drew my attention to it right away.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
card was great. It was centered
It
well.
was. It was centered well. I mean, I don't know if people out there know, but that dealer Ash, he's got incredible stuff. He's on.
Oh, that was him. He's on
Yeah.
Facebook. I get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got just.
Yeah.
You know, I said to him, "Do you have a 49 Jackie?" This was on Friday, and he just went into the case and scooped up like 7 of them and laid them all down. And he had like a one SGC 1.5, then an SGC 2, then a PSA 4, and SGC 5, and it just higher. And I was just like, whoa, like, okay, this is out of my league. I
Yeah.
got down to the 2 and the 1.5, and then I was even like, okay, so I'm getting an idea. And then I looked at his satchels too, and he had like 4 or 5 of those. So he has
like 8 rookies. It was insane.
yeah,
Wow.
like his showcases are amazing. Just to look at the amount. It's funny when they say, "Oh, you know, vintage is rare." You go to his table and you think, "What is this? Like this is the second coming of the junk wax era."
Yeah.
Only it's vintage. Like he's got Jim Brown rookies, and he's got 8 or 9 of them, and 3 of them are autographed. And I'm just like, "What?" Like it was just something to behold.
Is he going to the National, or doesn't he set up there?
I don't know.
No, I don't know. I don't know if he sets up. I
'Cause I
can.
don't know if I ever met him.
Yeah, that's the first time I had ever met him. He was not at Strongsville last year.
Okay.
He wasn't there.
Mm.
No, he. I can tell you that Josh J. Stottlemyre won. I won't reveal what he bought, but he bought a nice card from him, and I can't remember Andrew. Enough said cards. I don't know.
I don't know who he bought that card off of.
Yeah,
We're talking in code here, John, but we don't
Yeah.
want to spoil
Oh,
it.
no,
We don't
no, no,
wanna-
no. Yeah, I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it in case they're going to do a video. I was kind of, I know Josh was really sick after he got home from Strongsville. We were kind of messaging back and forth. So yeah, it's just, to me, I just think that more intimate, everything in one spot is more appealing than the National. Now, that being said, next year, Strongsville will be in March. The National will be in July, August, and they're both in the Cleveland area. So, for me, it's great. I mean, I'm only 4 hours away, right? Don, you're what, 2 hours from?
Yeah.
And how far
I'm
are you,
thinking-
John?
I'm thinking I may, like, instead of saving up not just for the National, because the week after the National ends, I'm already going to be saving up for the following year's National. That's really the only way I'm going to have any type of decent money to spend. But I'm also thinking that maybe I want to, in addition to what I set aside for the National, maybe just a little bit, not, every, 2 weeks or so, just a little bit. So then I can maybe go to Strongsville next year and it won't deplete my National budget, but I'll have something decent to work with to maybe pick up some vintage. So I already have it sort of in my head of maybe trying to go out next year.
I don't think you'll be disappointed at Strongsville at all. If you're into vintage, it's there. The one thing I can recall is that I find that at the National, a lot of dealers are coming in there. They've got extremely high costs. It can't be cheap to set up at the National.
Yep.
If you've got a couple of people that are there working for you on the weekend, you've got to put them up. You've got to feed them. You got to travel to and from. It's costly. So, anytime a dealer is making a good deal or a deal for you, that's coming out of, the money
Mhm.
that he needs to put out for his whole operation that week. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a lot less to set up at Strongsville. I know the hotel rooms were, I think they were like $125 a night. In Chicago.
Dump. Dude,
What's that?
hotel's kind of a dump. Like the room where the car is fine, but like the
Yeah,
elevator,
yeah,
we were on 4 or 5, so we would hit 5. The other people would hit 2 and 3, and the elevator would just skip it, go
yeah.
right back down.
There's
Like it
there's
was
one like the rooms themselves are fine. Like
true.
our room was great, but the amenities around the hotel, like people were complaining like the pool was under construction and one elevator by Sunday they had shut it down. It wasn't even working because it kept skipping floors just randomly. And it was like, are you being punked here? What's
Yeah.
going on?
And the
So
bar, like Chris from Missouri, waited so long. He went up to his room, made his own, and came back down. It's like
yeah, yeah.
forever.
It's I mean, at the end of the day, Scott was a good local host. He
Yep.
he picked out a couple of spots that we went and had a bite to eat. I had a buddy of mine locally come down with me the first time we all met up. We kind of went off, was kind enough to drive us, and we went to I think it was the Dog House. It was like
I
a
guess what it
little patio, burgers and hot dogs, and sit on the patio and shoot the breeze. It was nice. And then what was it? What was the other place called?
Whitey.
Whitey's. Yeah, we went to a little out for dinner that night. That was really good. That place was really good. And they had
really good.
they had the Cavaliers game on, so everyone was kind of getting right into the final couple of minutes, right? We were trying to coax each other. Who are they playing again? The Cavaliers.
The Knicks.
The Knicks. Yeah, we were like, go. We wanted to go New York. Like, wait for people to start chucking stuff at us, So, but
So I have a question on the 49 Bowman, and maybe this is what you were talking about with Dave saying he collects both sets. So I'm looking at mine here, and I only have 3, and 2 of them have their name on the front, and 1 does not. Is that the 2 different? Like, are there 2 versions of each card?
not of each. So I think it's cards 1 to 107 do not have the name on the front except card 4, I believe.
Yeah, because here's my Musial, and he's card 24.
Yeah, and there's no
I got
name on the front.
JT actually at the National last year.
Yeah, that's sweet. See, and there you go. There's a card that's one that I want to pick up graded.
Yeah.
Just because that's it's not cheap, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But and then I think after 107 up, they've got the names on the front.
Yeah, like
then
here's one with the name on it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And what card number is that? Probably higher than 107.
175.
There you go. There you go. So there's different, and then there's different variations. Like I have the Phil Rizzuto here. It even says right on there on the flip, no name on front. Right.
Yeah, I knew that was a variation one.
Yeah.
So he also has one with the name on it?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I think Dave was saying when because I watched his video some time ago when he went over the whole set.
Yeah.
It was something about the series. Like there were extra cards and they threw some players, and I think Rizzuto was one of them to finish the sheet. So they're not quite double printed, but they did, since either the earlier one had his name, the one at the end in that second run or whatever, they did it without his name, or it was a different color.
It's the opposite.
And he was trying to explain the sheets.
So it's the same photo, right? Just one has the name and one doesn't.
I think the ones with the name were the later series that were added on. I believe. Okay. But like I said, for me, it's I mean, Dave's got the master set. To my recollection, I'm pretty sure he's got all the variations.
I think he does.
But for me, just I just want the 240 name on front, back, all that doesn't matter. Just want to get it completed. And
So
Yeah,
beyond
go ahead.
being inspired, or however you want to call it, from watching Dave's video on the 49 Bowman, it is there something about that set versus, say, the 50 or 51 Bowman or 52 Bowman? Is it the player selection? Because again, you don't have the Jackie or the satchel in 1551, and well, yeah, the
yeah,
Jackie in 50,
yeah.
not in 51. So what was it about the 49? Was it just
Hon-
the design?
Honestly, the way it happened was, and I did a video about it. I belong to a Facebook group called Canadian Vintage Sports Cards. And a lot of baseball goes in there. You guys have to understand, like growing up in Canada, everything was hockey centric, like hockey, everything.
Right.
Never saw a Topps hockey card ever. It was always O-Pee-Chee. And conversely, the only baseball cards I seen were O-Pee-Chee. And, but not until, well, I think I remember the 71s. I think I remember the 71s because I'm trying to find, I've got like on the back of the 71 Topps,
Oh, yeah.
it's green.
Yep.
So on the O-Pee-Chee, it's yellow, like golden.
It's yellow, and the name, the picture's right in the middle.
Except for the high series. The high series looks exactly like that, only it's in yellow.
Okay.
So we didn't see a lot of the baseball. So when I see stuff in the group, it's kind of nice. Got it in Canada. Don't have to pay, the eBay tax. Guys aren't gouging for shipping. So I've been in that group for about 2.5 years, and I've become pretty familiar with a lot of the guys that have some good, decent baseball. And one guy put up, I want to say it was 25 cards, no dupes. And he just said $150. I was like, pfft. And he said mostly commons. And I was like, I'll take it. And I got it. And I had already seen Dave's video. And I'm like, at first I was like, okay, I'm going to keep them at my table for, setting up and doing shows. And I thought, no, like, let me do some research into this, and I'm like, wait, this is 10% of the set.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the wheels started turning and I'm like, off we go.
How many do you have now for the
So
set?
I have 91 of the 240.
Okay.
So, like I said,
Besides the Jackie, I forget. I saw a lot of what you picked up. Did you pick up others for that set in Strongsville?
yeah, I picked up about 30. I've got them. I can't tell you which ones. I think I picked up with the Jackie. I picked up 33.
Okay.
So that's the set right there so far.
Mm-hmm.
That's 2 stacks of card sabers.
Yeah, the Jackie in front of you?
Yeah, I've got the Jackie right here.
Look at that.
Oh, yeah, we got to look at that. Oh.
Yeah, so it's I know my camera's not the greatest.
Oh, that's centering in the cut. That's a great looking too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just and I mean, quite honestly,
Wow.
to see it in person is here's the back of it, is pretty let's put it this way. I bought this card and I went and showed it to my buddy Steve because I told him that morning after seeing that it was Jackie Robinson Day, I said,
yeah,
I'm not getting the satchel. I'm going to get this next year in Strongsville. That's what my goal is, unless I can find one at the National for a good price. But I'm going to try and avoid it because this was a big boy purchase.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I showed it to him and he's like, wow, congratulations. I'm like, yeah. He's like, now what are you going to do? And I said, I need a stiff drink. Like,
he did. He left the bar while we were still looking.
I left and I went to the bar and the friggin' bar wasn't even open. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? Right. So I more than made up for it that night because I found out that buckets of tall boys where if you bought 6, you only paid for 5, and and very reasonable too. So they were going down pretty good.
Well, my video about the Strongsville show, I've got a little clip of Mike sitting at the table where he bought it, and not Scott, Chris is holding it. So
Yeah.
right before I think you pulled the trigger on it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty exciting. Like I haven't had that. I don't think I've gotten that rush before. I've never really. I mean, it's probably it's by far the biggest card I've ever purchased. Just because it also in US dollars too, tack on a third. But yeah, it was just kind of that euphoric, like, wow, like I have it, right? And then my thought was, okay, go have a shot of Jack Daniels and a cold beer and just come back down to earth, right? And just kind of regroup. But the bar wasn't open, so I was like, okay, all right, I guess I'll go back in the show.
Yeah, it was fun. There were 3 of us there that got to, in our own way, live through Mike and enjoy the experience watching him pick it up. It was cool.
Yeah,
and it wasn't our money we were forking out either. So that
Scott's comment on my video was all the thrill with none of the bill. Is what his thing was. And then here's the Pee Wee Reese that came in today, and I was telling you, KSA is a Canadian grading company, and it just looks horrible in that gasket, and they give it a 4, and there's no way in hell. Like I'll be lucky to get a 2 if I send that to SGC. So I think what I'm going to do is, I've never cracked a slab, but I think these ones, I've seen people crack these open, and they're pretty simple. They come apart really well. So what I think I'm going to do is use it to, send away in a sub with SGC through JT and kind of track it, do its own little, because people have always asked me at shows like, oh, you interested in buying? And they show me these slabs, and I'm like, nah. And I was telling you guys off camera, and I'll tell the people listening, this company started in a town called Elmira, Ontario. And it's actually, while I was waiting, I wanted to double check the population. I think it's somewhere around 12 or 13,000 people. So they have a grading card company in a town of 13,000, and this town has nothing else. The story goes is that one of the employees was disgruntled and got into a fight with the owner and said, oh yeah, and opened his own grading company in the same town. So of all the cities in Canada, and obviously we're a tenth of your population, but Toronto's an hour away and there's like 3.5 million people.
Right.
They're in this town of 12, 13,000, and there's 2 grading companies across town. I'm like, what is going on? It's just like, push over, honey. We've got a new shipment of cards we got to start looking at, thinking to myself, how professional can this be? So
right.
It's definitely a candidate for SGC. And I just, I think with the vintage stuff, I think people always say, PSA commands more dollar and stuff like that. And it does. But at the end of the day, for myself, both as a collector and a dealer, if I'm a collector, I'm okay if it's in either. As a dealer, do I want it to go? Do I want it in PSA? Yeah, because I'm going to get more money. But the part after that is, well, do I want PSA holding my cards for 6 months so I can make a little bit more profit? Where SGC, I might be able to turn that card and then buy something else. I could do 3 or 4 turns,
right,
and make profit by time that one comes back. So, why bother? And if people want the card, who cares if it's in SGC or PSA? If you are a collector and you just want it, you want it. I used to be that point where I was a bit of a like Eric, those back pages says, be a grading snob. Like it's not high enough grade for me. Because I questioned Eric one time. We were shooting the breeze, and I said, "You always say buy the card, not the grade." I said, but I have a big problem with that statement coming from you, because your Leaf Jackie Robinson is in a PSA 6 and your Jim Brown rookie is in a PSA 7. Like, what's up with that? I said, buy the card, not the grade, right? And he's like, yeah, I used to be a grading snob. I used to think that the higher numbers,
Right.
meant something. But truly, I mean, my case in point for me, my Jackie's a 2, and I'm ecstatic to own it. And
Oh, yeah.
I think if the card presents well, even if it's an authentic, if it presents well, who cares?
Well,
You've got
and
it.
for most of us, that's I know for me, even if I wanted to, be in a position to go after that Jackie, yeah, I'd be at a 1, lucky maybe to get a 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the income to say to be a snob and say, "Oh, I only want at least a 5,
Yeah.
5 minimum." I don't have that hobby budget to
Right.
even think of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm, for cards in the 50s and 60s and some in the 70s, I'm loving PSA 4s. I
100%.
can
I
get.
I actually said that, John, to my buddy Steve. I said to him, I said, 4s are very underrated because you can get them very cheap and they
Yep.
still look amazing.
Because a 4 is that almost that next step before you get away from most of the creasing. Once
Yeah.
you get into 3s, yeah, okay, there's a greater likelihood that you're gonna have some creasing in the
Yeah.
card. When you
Yeah.
get to a 4, it's mainly centering, and then the corners are, like, rounded or frayed or something. I don't mind the corners.
Right.
So, I've been finding these really nicely centered 4s. Yeah, corner issues,
Yeah.
yes,
Hmm.
but well centered and the card itself full of free of, creases,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Especially if it presents well, right?
Yeah. Here's a PSA 3 of mine that I think presents pretty well. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Oh,
Nah, nah,
man, oh, man.
So it's, this card is off centered, but this is a case too. I bought this at a local card shop and I got a really good deal on it. And when I, I'm just so happy to have this card. I don't care about the centering on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can be pickier on something like this,
That's
but
amazing.
on this when the price is right and
Yeah.
there's no creases and it presents really well. The centering doesn't bother me on it.
I'm just thinking, you got the Mutual and the Satchel. You might as well start going after the set now. Give
I,
you a little project, Don.
yeah, I
Well
would
well,
love
since
to
we're
have the Robinson, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But
Well,
well, since we're showing off, I'll show you my, the Spawn that I
yeah,
got,
yeah, for sure.
and Mike, you'll probably be able to see it right away,
that's a cool card too.
but
Uh,
it's a PSA 5,
okay.
and it's right there, some little bit little
Yeah. Yeah,
discoloration
above
in
the
the red
shoulder
background,
there.
but other than that, that
Man,
is and he even gave me a
that's
discount, um,
that's
from what
sharp.
we had it listed because of the stain. Now it's an older number slab, so
Yeah,
would it have gotten a 5 today? Probably not,
right.
but to me, it was the centering, and again, unless you're really catching it in the light, my focus is on Spawn. I see Spawn, and I don't see that little stain,
100%.
and to me, if anything, it gives a character. I mean, it's a 70-year-old card,
Yep. 70,
you know?
70, 70, 84 years. No,
84
74 years old
yeah,
right
Realize
now.
and to
really close
me, I don't expect these
card.
cards to be perfect.
Cool.
Right. They should
So,
be well loved.
Yeah.
yeah. And so, yeah, I think I got a great deal, and I'm glad I decided to pick that one up there.
Yeah, it's nice. It's really nice. And it's that's there's certain cards. There's obviously the Satchel, Campanella, the Snyder, the Spawn, there's a bunch, Feller, Bob Lemon, I had the early win. I had
Mm,
an SGC 7 about a
ooh,
year ago before this even happened. Bought it with the total thought that I'll flip this at a show, which I did. And I'm kind of glad that I did because I don't want one card to be, a PSA 7 or an
yeah,
SGC 7 and everything low grade. I might as well just keep it all within that same
Right.
marker, right? I
yeah,
just think it's a better overall, like, to it'd be different if the whole thing was low grade and I said, yeah, but the Jackie's a 7. That's
right,
different,
yeah.
right? But you say, okay, the early wins a 7, that's kind of a head scratcher, like, okay, all right, whatever. So, yeah, it's going to be fun, but it's going to be a long, long journey. I think I've depleted every Canadian of their 49 Bowmans up here right now. And I actually, the Toronto Sports Card Expo was this past weekend.
Okay.
And my wife said, "Oh, are you going to it?" And I was like, "Nope."
Yeah, yeah,
Like, and again, I had been saving, money that I'd been making from doing shows purposely because I knew we were going to Strongsville for 2 or 3 months. So I'd just been stowing money away. And she said, "You're not going to Toronto?" I said, "No, this like that depleted a lot of the hobby funds. So it's, I need to sell some more before I can go on another buying spree." So
yeah. So beyond the Jackie, you
yeah.
have the Phil Rizzuto, you have the Pee Wee Reese. Are those the three bigger
Yeah,
ones that you have?
they're the three big ones I have, and I've got two. I've got Bob Dillinger and the Hank Sauer that are
Okay.
graded only because I picked them up at shows for like $25 and they
Yeah.
were graded already. I'm like, why not? But everything else raw is a common player. Well, except for
You showed
he
two Red Sox players, I think, in
I
your
have
video.
I have the old
Oh,
Eddie
Eddie.
Rakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got this in Strongsville. Yeah, I don't know, I guess between those five and I have 91, so I've got 86 quote unquote commons. There's no real star power in any of these.
Okay.
So it's yeah, it's going to be a marathon, but it'll be fun, just chipping away. And I have my first video that was put out, I think it was 6 months ago, and I can't even remember how many I bought, but I'd have to go back. But my video from 6 months ago shows, my first purchase of that lot of 49 Bowmans, and we'll see how long it takes to get to the completion.
Yeah, I was just looking up how many Hall of Famers are, and there's 25, I
Yeah,
believe, 25 Hall of Famers
yeah,
in
yeah.
that set. So about
So
about
I mean,
10%. Yeah, just over 10% are Hall of
right.
Famers. That's
So I mean, and that's the thing. And I've got three of them, right? So I still got another 20 to go. So outside of Satch being a big one. I mean, Duke Snyder and Campy are big ones, and then there's Richie Ashburn and
oh yeah.
and there's tons in there, right? The
Yep.
Spawn. So it'll be, a slow peck, but I think that what'll give me the hardest trouble is the high numbers because
Yeah.
the guys at the Strongsville show were asking a good penny for them.
So I think you said you had picked up, and well, you can tell me in your video. You said you picked up most of those commons for what was it, eight or $10 each, something like that, or
Some I got as low as $4.
$4.
So
Okay.
so the guy had a binder full and he had them in penny sleeves, and the penny sleeves had the price sticker on it. So as you
Okay.
pulled them out, they were already marked. So there were some that were, he would have two. He would have one for $4 and he would have one for 15, because if you graded, the $4 one would probably come back a 1 or a 2, and the
Yep.
15 would come back maybe a 6 or 7. I was like, I'm okay with the $4.
Yep.
It gets me closer to the completion.
Sure.
There were some that he only had one, and they were, it was a little bit more because of the condition,
Yep.
but I didn't mind paying if it was a nice crisp card. I think if it's loose in the binder, it's not going to stick out as much as an SGC 7 early win when everything else is
Right.
2s,
Yeah.
3s, or maybe a 4.
So what were you mentioned the high numbers are more expensive. So what were they asking for at the Strongsville per high number?
So I found 2 dealers with high numbers, and obviously one guy was like extremely, he was like $55 a piece.
For
Yeah,
common for high wow.
but they were crisp.
Okay.
And then another guy, his were somewhere around 35 or 40. But I thought to myself, okay, so in knowing that, you know, if I pick off like 15 or 20, I'm into $600 or $700.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's a case of, and from the guy that I actually bought from, I think I grabbed 3 high numbers that were like $20 each because of the
Yep.
condition. So,
Yep.
just chip away at it, right?
Yeah.
Not all in one shot, because it doesn't affect your pocketbook as much when you buy 10 cards and the guy's like 400. It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. Well, and you said your priority going into this was either the Jackie or Satchel.
yeah,
And so you weren't going to the show to say, "Hey, I want to pick up as many. Hopefully, I can find a whole bunch of high numbers to check off my list."
yeah,
That was a, "Hey, oh, they have some for sale, but they didn't meet your price point there." And like you
yeah,
said, if you did that, then that would compromise you getting the Jackie or the Satchel. So
100%, 100%. And I thought that was my goal, to get one of them there, one of them. And my initial thought was, okay, well, I'll get one here. Maybe I'll get the Satchel at the National. But now I'm like, no, I want to try and get the Satchel next year at
yeah,
Strongsville, and I'll work on some other stuff. I've got a 67 Philadelphia football set that I was working on at Strongsville as well, and
mhm,
picking up some of the boxing stuff that I like too. So, um,
yeah.
yeah,
I have a one or two cards in mind for the National that are would for me would be big purchases. I don't know if I'll find one in the right grade for the right price. So I'm gonna obviously would be flexible.
yeah,
But I've brought enough money that if I get one of those cards, I still have a decent amount that I can have some fun and buy other cards as well. Again, I'm
yeah,
not going to say it because I don't want to jinx myself.
yeah,
But if I pick up either one of those 2 cards, those would be for me. Those would be big
yeah,
for
yeah.
my collection. So
I mean, I think with the National, I mean, even in Strongsville, I found, like, once I picked up the Jackie, I was like, okay, let's go home.
yeah, I'm done.
Like, I'm done, right? Like, and it was Saturday afternoon. I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't need to get anything else, really. Like, I'm good, I just but I mean, we were there until Sunday, and I only spent about an hour and a half on the show floor on
yeah,
Sunday, and then we headed back. But yeah, once you don't want to, or maybe you do, maybe people do, I don't know. If I'm going to the National, and just hypothetically, I bring 2 grand and I plop 2 grand on a card, well, then I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do the rest of the show here?
right.
Why
Yeah,
am I here? If I want to hang,
yeah.
I'll just go watch ESPN in my room and hang out and have beers at night with the guys. Like, I don't need to walk around this. Like, what for? I'll just be tempted to go to the bank machine and spend more
I
money that I
know.
don't have.
Yeah, that's why I don't want to spend all my money on one card. But
Hmm.
if it's in a certain price range, it would still allow me with my budget to have other stuff to spend. And I sometimes I think, okay, why am I doing? Yeah, I love going to the National. I love meeting the YouTubers, and that takes
Hmm.
precedence over everything. I just love that
Hmm.
experience. It's not necessarily the cards I get, but it's like, okay, it's a show,
Hmm.
all right, and there's lots of dealers, yeah, and all that stuff. But I don't go to a lot of shows. Being in Central
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, I think there's one up in every once in a while up in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre. Don, there's that Pittsburgh show, but that's what, twice a year.
Once
There's
a year, man.
Philly, yeah.
They only did
So
it
there's
twice because of COVID that one year coming off it, but it
okay,
once a year.
once a year, And then there's the Philly show that maybe once or twice that I just went to the first time at the end of last year. So I don't attend many shows. I mean, I could
Mhm.
buy everything that I wanted to on eBay and, of course, pay tax and shipping and stuff.
Mhm.
But for some of these cards, I want to see them before I spend this type of money.
100%.
And that whole thing with the eBay authentication now, if it's over 250, you got to do all that. I don't want to deal with that. So
Yeah.
this is the National is sort of my show because again, I don't attend many. So it's like I get to
Right.
see these cards in person. I get to look at them and tilt them in the light. And hey, do I get the warm fuzzies about holding this card? Is this one I want? Things like that.
Mhm.
So that's why I put that much importance on the National. It's not, I mean, it is just it's a card show. It's a large card show,
Mhm.
but I don't get to attend many card shows.
Right.
So
So it's important that, yeah, when you're there, and the other thing is you can comparative shop, right? You can look at the eye appeal of card A here, and then 3 rows down, you can look at the same card. Now you're comparing grade, price, eye appeal.
yeah,
What's the better route? Maybe this guy's card is a lower grade, but it looks better. His 4 looks better than this guy's 5, and I'm going to get it cheaper. Why
yeah,
not? You have where eBay, it's just everything's the image. The image is the image. And sometimes,
the images
we've
are not
all
great.
done, right. You get the card and you're like, huh,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
it, eh? It
I
doesn't look,
didn't notice that. I
yeah,
did the same thing. I think it was last year in Atlantic City. I think I picked it up in Atlantic City. The Steve Carlton rookie.
yep,
The same dealer had a 4 and a 5.
yep,
I held them side by side. It wasn't like, oh, here's a table over here. Let me walk back and forth. I held them side by side and I looked and I said, I can't tell the difference.
yeah,
I
yeah,
can't tell the difference. Like I'm buying the 4 for like
100
$25 cheaper or something like that. I'm like, what?
yeah,
Why would I?
yep,
So yeah, you can do that, especially if someone has lots of inventory, like the Jackies.
right,
You
yeah,
could take a look at the different grades and price points and see which works for you.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
what do you think we jump on the trivia, John?
Yes, let's do that.
You said you had one, right?
I have one too, so I'm ready to be embarrassed yet again on this
Uh,
episode.
So
is this, do I take part in this, or it's between you two?
no, you take part in this. So
Uh,
there are 31 players in the NHL, NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball that have had their numbers retired by more than one team. Because of time and how many there are, I'm going to cut out the NBA because I think you guys are more baseball, hockey, and there's only one football player, so I'm going to keep him in there. And there were 13 NBA players. Now, if you want me to keep them in, we can.
So this is
wait, what's the
okay.
question again?
There's 31 players in the 4 major league sports.
Yeah.
In baseball, actually, 2 of them are managers, not players, that have had their number retired by more than one team.
Oh, okay. Well, I know in hockey, Gretzky for sure, because
Yeah.
he's retired through the league. Jackie Robinson.
Oh, I wasn't including Jackie.
Okay.
See, I would say Boggs on the list, but I don't think Tampa Bay technically yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. They did retire.
Yeah.
He's doing something. Oh, he's going to be inducted into the Tampa Bay Rays Hall of Fame, but his numbers retired
The
with
Red
the
Sox,
Devil Rays and the Red Sox.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Oh man. So by more than one team.
Right. Well, I thought you'd knock these hockey ones right out, Mike.
Well, I'm thinking is one Marcel Dion
Nope.
in hockey?
Frank Robinson.
Yes.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. Bobby Orr,
No.
Chicago and Boston.
No.
I'm trying to think original 6. Toronto, Montreal.
Howe? Did you say Gordie Howe?
He's one of them. That's
Right.
cool. The Whalers and the Red Wings.
Red Wings. How about Terry Sawchuk?
Nope.
Wow.
At least from where I got this from, it wasn't.
Carlton Fisk.
Yes.
How?
White Sox.
Oh, but it's different number though, right?
Doesn't matter.
It's just different
Okay,
teams.
okay.
It doesn't have to be
Okay,
different. Yeah, it's not
okay.
the same number, but
Okay.
their team number for it. Yeah, I guess.
How
Right.
about Yarmer Yager in
No.
hockey? Really?
Penguins haven't
Why he only played for Pittsburgh?
Huh?
No, he's played for everybody.
Sorry.
He's still playing in Russia.
He's still playing. Oh my god.
He's
Okay.
part owner of the team.
So how many more
man.
baseball are left on? Because that's sort of my.
Oh, there is 9 more.
Oh,
How many hockey are there left?
I'm sorry, 8 more baseball and hockey. There's 4 more and 1 football player.
One football. Okay.
Ken
Football.
Griffey Jr.
No.
I'm trying to think of that. Every player I can think of, like, only played for one team. So I'm trying to think of.
And like I said, there was 2 of the baseball guys are managers.
Is Billy Martin one of them?
Nope.
Not Casey Stengel.
Yep, that's one.
Oh, all right.
Wow. I'm trying to go hockey here.
Let me see. One's a goalie.
Jacques Plante.
Nope.
Martin Brodeur. I don't know. I don't know too many hockey players.
Who are the 2 teams that retired the goalie?
Canadians and Avalanche.
Oh, Patrick Waugh.
Yep.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, Patrick Waugh. Huh. Yeah, I'm. How about Ron? How about Ron Francis?
No.
No.
One of the hockey players had his number unretired for 1 year so his son could wear it.
Hull?
Yep.
Brett Hull?
Yeah, but it was Bobby Hall's.
Bobby.
The Blackhawks and the Jets, which later became the Coyotes, who his son played for.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I'm trying to think of the
7 more baseball.
Football player. Holy smokes.
Defense for football.
Defense for football.
Singletary?
Nope.
Reggie Smith.
Give us a hint on the team.
Baseball player.
Deion Sanders. No.
No, go back.
No, you're talking about a football player, a defensive football player.
His name wasn't Reggie Smith.
Reggie White.
Reggie White.
Yeah, I thought that's what I said. Maybe
Minister of Defense.
Yeah.
The Packers and the Eagles.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the hockey players was Gretzky's teammate.
Curry?
No. Messier.
Oh, probably Edmonton in New York.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The hero in New York. Yeah. Huh. Interesting. So baseball, there's still quite a bit more.
There's 2 managers. There is 1, 2, 3 pitchers.
Nolan Ryan.
That's one of them.
not Roger Clemens.
And these guys are all Hall of Famers, obviously. They're on this list.
Randy Johnson?
Nope. Good guess, but no.
It's not Schilling. Retired.
How about would Pete Rose be one of them?
No. One of the players at one time was the all-time record holder in a stat in baseball.
Gosh.
Well, see, it wouldn't. Would it be Hank Aaron?
Yep. The Brewers retired his uniform.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
That makes sense.
Man.
Still another pitcher.
There is still 2 pitchers. One's a relief pitcher and one's a starter.
Oh, relief. Eckersley?
Nope.
No.
Raleigh Fingers.
Yep. The Brewers and the A's.
Oh, good one.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to
So So how many do we have left in baseball?
Players, you have 1, 2, 3, and a manager.
People are watching this going, "You idiots."
I know. Yeah, just like watching a game show. It's like, solve the puzzle already. I know
We
it.
didn't
It's
play hockey. I'm glad we didn't throw basketball in. But if you guys want
Yeah.
to throw a few of those out, you can. So
oh, I
Jordan.
yeah.
but Jordan's is, you're right, but it's not. I didn't know this. He's obviously the Bulls and the Miami Heat retired his number because he was a contributor.
Oh,
That's a cheesy way to get it.
yeah.
I guess that's them saying, "Hey, we don't want anyone to wear 23
Right.
again." Just trying to think of the bait. One of them's a manager.
Yep. From the 70s.
See, I was gonna say maybe Bobby Cox, but I don't think
No.
for the. I could see it for the Braves, but maybe not.
Two of
Tony
the
La Russa. Tony La Russa.
from the 70s. Two of the players were rookies in the 70s and played into the 80s a little bit. And the other pitcher had some famous pitching mates. Or
How about Ozzie Smith?
no.
Reggie Jackson.
Yes.
Reggie.
That was the case. He had number 9 and 44 retired.
Yeah.
They were different numbers, but the A's and the Yankees.
And then the pitcher. I'm trying to think a 70s manager.
Really?
Gaylord Perry.
No.
I mean, I knew he played for every.
Not Earl
but
Weaver.
The pitcher's not from the 70s.
No, the manager is. So it's not Earl Weaver, though.
Very popular team in the 70s.
Lasorda? No. So it's got to be a
Sparky
Yankees
Anderson?
manager.
Yes, Sparky Anderson.
Sparky
Oh,
Anderson.
there you go. Big red machine.
Tigers and Reds.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've got one batter and one pitcher left and one hockey player.
I'm drawing a blank.
You want me to tell you the hockey player?
Sure. What teams?
Bruins and Avalanche.
Ray Bork.
All right. What are the two teams for the baseball players?
The batter, Twins and Angels, and the pitcher,
Rod Carew.
correct.
Yes.
And
Okay.
the pitcher, Braves and Cubs.
Greg
Maddox.
Yep.
Okay. Thank God that's over.
Basketball, we didn't have it, but it was Kareem, Barkley, Wilt Chamberlain actually had 3 teams.
Wow.
Clyde Drexler, Dr. J, Jordan, Bob Lanier, Moses Malone, Pete Maravich, Earl Monroe, Oscar Robertson, and Nate Thurman.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
Hey, that was good.
yeah, it was fun.
All right.
And
hopefully, I have an easy one. Well, we'll see. And now,
Gotta
Don,
be
this is
easier than
down.
that.
This is down your alley because, Don, I know you've been doing a collection, maybe behind videos a little bit, but you're doing a collection of former Negro League players who made it into the major leagues.
Right.
Right. So here's the question, and of course, Mike, chime in if you know this answer here. Who was the first African American player inducted into the Hall of Fame who had not played in the Negro Leagues?
Ooh. Bob Gibson.
Wow, well done.
Very good.
Bob
Look at
Gibson.
that.
Yep.
Not only does he nail the trivia, he comes up with the hardest trivia.
Yep.
I gotta be.
That was fun.
That's not an official Jerry Sandusky Penn State sweater, is it?
Easy now. My cool man.
I've been looking at that Nittany line the whole time, and I'm just itching to get that line out. Oh gosh, that's too funny. Too funny.
Well, Mike, man, I appreciate you coming on. It was awesome.
Yeah.
With you last week. I had a blast. I knew we have no problem shooting the bull here.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun. I'm not you mentioned it earlier, I'm not on a lot of live streams, and it's not for any reason. Like, I've been asked and stuff, and I don't know. Sometimes I'm just not into it, but this was fun. Like, it was just casually.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talked to me about it, Don, I was like, yeah, I can come on and talk with you guys. Sometimes it's I don't know. I watch a lot of the live streams, and I think it's for me a situation where um I like to listen and learn and see what people are talking about. I like Alex's, um, and started watching your guys too. And it's good because not only do you get to know the person that you're talking to on a more personal level, I think it's good that you find out a little bit about their collecting history, because a lot of these people come on and they start new channels and that. Like, I just found there's a whole new wave of YouTubers that have come
Mhm.
on in the last year or so, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to catch up on who everybody is, to be quite honest with you. And I was like, holy smokes, I don't know these people, and I got to start subscribing and catching up to videos and
And
stuff.
like John and I were talking earlier too, this isn't a live stream, but
Yeah,
it's the same kind of format, but our attention is with each other. And I'm always in the chats on live streams. I love them, but it does sometimes when you're the host or on it, take your focus away, or it's hard to get to what everyone's saying. And
yeah,
we're here. We just don't worry about that. We just concentrate on each other. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Just come on and shoot the bull. It's all
Yeah.
good.
And even though we have one, we start off with one topic or go in one direction, I think honestly, I think the Strongsville show took up more time than an actual talking about the 49 Bowman, which is fine because
Yeah,
it all ties together,
it's all
and
it's all
one
it's
thing
all
leads to
part
another, and
it's all part of that lack of focus.
yeah,
and it's fresh. It's happening.
Talking about the 49 Bowman set, and I'm answering trivia hockey.
I
Right?
think when I do the video editing, I need to find a squirrel, and every once in a while, I'll have it go across the
Yeah,
screen whenever we
just have it
go on a
hopping
different
across.
topic. The
Right?
little squirrel just
I
hops
had
on
to
by.
throw hockey in somehow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you did. You did. Good stuff. No, it was a pleasure being on. I appreciate it, guys. Had fun.
Yep, yep. We really enjoyed having you on. Appreciate it. And I guess, yeah, we'll wrap things up here right at about an hour and a half. Hey, so with that, if you haven't checked out our previous episodes, there'll be a link to all that stuff in the description at the end of this. So until next time, hey, everyone, thanks for watching.